Hi, you guys. Good morning. How are you? So good to see you guys here today. We are working on Odette's quilt, right? Kaye England designed this. Many of you are still cutting fabric. Just, you know what, Nicole? The thing is, there's no behind. We've got plenty of time. This quilt, even today, we're just going to start assembling blocks. So you are fine. And Betty Ann, it's great to have you. Iris, welcome. Thank you so much. And thank you for your kind note to the quilt show as well. Thank you very much for that. Good morning, Debbie and Phoenix and Linda, you guys. It's great to see everybody. While you're popping in, I thought I would just, because I know it takes a minute for everybody to get in, I thought I'd do a little show and tell. Hugo and I have a friend visiting from Texas. Susan and I have been friends since college in music school. And today we went to Dogwood Canyon Nature Park, which you can see the buildings there in the back. But we also rented bicycles and we went on a little joyride. There are so many waterfalls in this park. It is beautiful. If you ever make it to the southwest part of Missouri near Branson, you definitely want to look up this nature park. We found this fabulous spider web on the chapel today. I thought that was really fun. And Hugo found a nice little place to sit and relax and rock for a minute. That was actually amazing. There is a covered bridge that they built that goes over the river. So there is a kind of a river that runs through the whole thing with lots and lots of waterfalls and trout and water features and all of this. Just look at these cliff walls coming by. There's Hugo taking a photo of that. And here's another. I just thought the light was so beautiful. Gold. We went in the morning. It was really cool. It was absolutely gorgeous. It's called Dogwood Nature Park. Actually, it's built by Johnny Morris. Johnny Morris's Bass Pro Shops, if you know that name. And then here are a couple of crows that were dancing in the water, and I'm not sure if they were finding something to eat, but nonetheless, I have a real wonderful connection to them. And look at this, more waterfalls. There's actually just a lot of waterfalls, and then there's little waterfalls in the creek, but I thought maybe while everybody's popping in, I would just let you see a peek into my world. So I hope that you are having a good time. I'm going to watch as best I can for any questions that might pop in. Today, let me explain to you what's going to happen. Today is about building the blocks, all right? We're not setting the blocks. We're not putting on the borders. Today, we're just building the blocks. The last video, which was number 1 of 4. This is 2 of 4. You can find these videos if you're just coming in. You can find them at thequiltshow.com. They also will live on the Quilt Show's Facebook page. They will live on the Quilt Show's YouTube page. But the best place that you can go is to thequiltshow.com. That is just stuck right there in the bottom. You can see that right there. And that's where there's a classroom. If you go to watch, there's shows and classroom. The classroom's available, and that's where we have the printed materials for you. For example, the cover, you can see this is what we're going to need next time. We're going to need that next time. And I also created a chart of cutting. All of that's been posted on the classroom page, so you can download those and have those as well. So that's how you find it. In case you're just finding this, you don't need to feel like you're behind for any reason, because this will live fresh forever. So if you want to make this quilt, we have kits at thequiltshow.com. You can find those there in the store, and you can use your own fabrics, and I've provided all of that information in video number 1. So today we're building the block, and because I'm using a traditional cutting method, we're doing this kind of 3 ways, but we're focusing on the traditional method that I use. Kay uses the specialty rulers, which are also available in the shop. I might as well just mention the Ricky Tim Staple Stuff Poly is what I'm going to be sharing with you in lesson 4 on how I mark my quilt using water-soluble thread and Ricky Tim Staple Stuff Poly. So if you want to get ahead, If you didn't put that in as an add-on when you got the kit, go to the store at thequiltshow.com and definitely drop in, if you don't already have some water-soluble thread, get some, and the Ricky Tim Staple Stuff Poly, which once you start using it, you'll know why it's such a great thing. Anyway, that's not till lesson 4, but I'm giving you a heads up on that. But I'm doing a traditional piece method, and Kaye is using those specialty rulers. So today, I'm going to build the block for you in 4 little video lessons. I'll stop and see if there's any questions between each. Those are done with the traditional cutting that I'm doing. Then there are 3 short little videos that I will show where Kaye is showing how to make the block with those cutting and the AccuQuilt cuts. So you may, if you're not using the specialty rulers, you may not need to go till the end. If you are using the specialty rulers or Kaye, just bear with me as I go through my videos first. I am not assuming that you guys know anything. I know you do, okay? But we have so many new people at thequiltshow.com, brand new quilters that haven't learned some of the tricks of the trade. So I am speaking on simple terms, breaking it down and making sure that everybody succeeds. And if you're an experienced quilter, I'm going to hope greatly that you also learn a thing or two along the way. So I'm going to get started now. These are pre-produced videos that I've done for you. I will come back in between and talk to you, but it's just easier and it expedites the time if I show you these this way. So let's get started with the first video from me doing the traditional sewing method. Okay, everybody, let's get to sewing. For this block, you're going to need only one of the A square, but you are going to need 4 of everything else. Now, I've situated it so I have my A, my B triangle, which is going to turn into sort of a diagonal frame, and my C, which is a square, but it's going to turn into that little triangle right there. So 4 of those, and just 1 of A. And then for this unit, I'm going to need 4 of everything you see and 4 of everything you see here for the 4 corners. I'm going to start by just putting these together. I like to lay all my pieces out, and then I know I have everything in order. I have everything I need, but I also have it sort of positioned so I don't get confused. Now, one of the things I want to mention is I like to have a pair of tweezers. I, of course, like to have a seam ripper. I like to have a stiletto of some kind, and, of course, a little pair of scissors because I'm going to do some trimming and cutting and all of that. But when we put this first unit onto the square, I want you to notice that I've got equidistance from here to here, and actually, in this case, it does feel a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm talking right here. If I start sewing right at that spot, that is bigger than 1/4 of an inch. But go ahead and just sew 1/4 of an inch. It's going to be back just a bit, and I'll show you how that works out for me as we move forward. Now, I've got my 1/4 inch foot on the machine, and I'm going to simply use the 1/4 inch guide, the edge of the 1/4 inch foot. You guys, I may be assuming that you know little, but the truth is most of you know a lot, and some of you may have some new things that you will learn from doing this. Now, because this is just a oneer, I'm not going to chain piece anything. Now, one of the things that Kaye suggested, and I am doing on this quilt, is I am finger pressing my seams open, and I recommend that you do that as well. You do not have to take this to the iron just yet, but definitely finger press those open. Now, when you bring the next one in, we're going to do the opposite side, right sides together. And once again, I'm going to make sure that I have equidistant on each side. I don't want the triangle to be shifted. The best I can do is eyeball it to make sure that it's just straight on there, and I'll do another 1/4 inch seam. I will start using some leaders, enders, starters, stoppers, whatever it is that you want to call those. I will be using some of those as we get started. And once again, open these up. Finger press. All right, now for the next unit, you're going to put these on, and this is where you really will see that 1/4 inch. And what I'm talking about is right here at this intersection, right there, that should be 1/4 inch from the right edge. So from here to the intersection should be 1/4 inch, and from here to this intersection should be 1/4 inch. And you want your needle to go right there in that V to start. You sew your 1/4 inch and you come off that V, that intersection when you finish. So again, I'm going to put this right into the machine. Make sure that my seams are open. I don't want them to tuck back. And now my needle is right in that V. I'm going to just align things, make sure that the end V is there, and I can sew my 1/4 inch seam. When I come off, I'm looking at that spot right there. Notice the stiletto helps me manipulate everything. And I'm going to press these seams open. Yes, we are going to trim the little bunny ears. And I will do that by taking off that, this, and I still have now this other side to do. Once again, I want to lay this on so that I've got 1/4 inch from the right side to the intersection. And so all the way across, 1/4 inch seams, being very accurate with my 1/4 inch seams. And when I come off this intersection, I want to make sure that my needle is coming right off right there. So you can trim off the little ears, and whenever this gets pressed open, you can trim off the final little bunny ears. It's easy to do. Just see the extra, trim it off. And what you should see is you should now see that things are straight going across, and you should also be able to see that you're 1/4 inch from the edge. Now I will take this to the iron. I will press it. I will not iron it. I just press it nice and flat, making sure that the seams stay open. And then I want to double check the measurement because I really do want this to be 6.5 inches unfinished. All right, I've pressed this. It is exactly 6.5 inches, so I feel good about that. Now we're going to use the C squares. These were the 2-inch squares. We're going to lay those on a corner, matching the corner exactly. And one of the things that I like to do with this is I end up using a sticky note, or you could just use a piece of masking tape and put it right at where the needle is. In this case, I've got a little hole. Bring that out just like this, so that when you sew this square from diagonal to diagonal, I have put that, see, this is where I like my tweezers. Bring that over just a tad. And I'm putting this on the paper, right here on this edge of the paper. And as I stitch now, I'm just gonna start sewing. If I'm being truthful, if I am a breadth, a needle's distance to the right of that point, I'll still be fine. But I mean, I really like to do that because I know the fabric has to fold over that thread. Sew from corner to corner. If you fudge, you are fudging less than a thread's distance to the right of that point. And as I manipulate this, I am bringing the point of the square along the edge of my Post-it note so that I know I'm coming straight into that corner, and there we go. So I will give that a little cut, and I won't trim this just yet, I'll wait, but I'm gonna do all 4 of these. Now, this is where people go, I need to use my ruler and cut 1/4 of an inch. I've already sewn what I need. I don't need 1/4 of an inch. And I normally would go to my rotary cutter and just eyeball this and trim it off. But since I'm sitting here right now, it's okay just to take some scissors if you want to stay where you are. If you've got a little rotary cutter and mat next to you, you could just cut that off again. You do not need to measure. There's no need to measure. You just eyeball 1/4 of an inch seam and it will be fine. It will hold. You know what a 1/4 inch seam looks like, you guys. So just trim those guys off. We are going to finger press all of these open and then go to the iron and press the entire block. And once again, I like to double check the size to make sure it is perfectly 6.5 inches unfinished at this stage. All right, so any questions at this point? I'm pretty excited to see we've got Switzerland here today and Heidi knew Odette. That is very cool. Welcome from Russia in Moscow. I had such a great time in the year 2012. I was in Moscow with the wonderful Russian quilters, and I enjoyed that. It's so great to have you here today. Any other questions? I'm going to keep watching those. And no questions now, so I'm going to move forward to the next part, which is getting the next unit sewn. So here we go, on to the next one. I've laid out 4 pieces of each. I'm not going to put these on till the end, and I'm going to start with these 2. So I'm going to move these guys out of the way, and I just need to start with the top 2 pieces. Now, I know that this is the orientation that I'm going to be using for that first piece, and I'll have these guys ready to chain piece. I do like to have a little starter on this. I also have, you guys, I have a single hole throat plate on. That's just going to keep your fabric from pushing down into the gap. It also gives you a little bit more of a consistent stitch, but mostly it just makes it a little bit more friendly. If you don't have a single hole throat plate, you can manage, but just make sure you're using a little starter to get started. Now on this, when I flip this over, because of the way I've cut these blocks, I've got this little blunted end and it's coming onto a point. I want to make that point touch that edge and then go up right so that it's perfectly aligned on this edge. And now I'm going to come into the 1/4 inch, making sure that the right edge of my fabric is along that 1/4 inch line. I'm seeing that I need a slight little adjustment right there. Again, I'm using my seam ripper. I could also use my little stiletto for that. So make sure that it's perfectly aligned, because when I come off this end, I want to come off right on that point, okay? So I'm going to continue that. I'll put the next piece on, make sure that you've got your right sides together. So orient these the exact same way, all right? So that when you flip it over, I'm going to start by looking at the bottom to make sure that this is coming off at 1/4 of an inch. Bring it up to the top and stitch that through. You could, in all seriousness, you could do this for all 5 blocks. I end up generally making 1 block at a time, but if you wanted to go even speedier, you could get all of these units, which would be a total of 20, and chain piece all 20 of those. Flip that over, align that bottom notch, and again, I'm going to sew this through and stop just long enough to show you that I'm going to be coming off right here on this, right there on that point. And that's just how you make things perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and run another little kind of ender through, and then I will trim off that and cut all of these. This is now when you're going to take time to finger press each of these open. And there we have all 4 of our units. Again, we're going to put on the next piece. That's going to be this piece. So I'm going to flip things around and we'll do them one at a time. This time, when I put this on, I'm going to make sure that, get ready for this. This is why I haven't trimmed anything. Do you see this point right here? I want this point to align with that point down below, which should give me now the 1/4 inch that I need right here. And then just gently lay it up onto your fabric. Let's start with a starter, come into the block. Again, making sure that these are aligned. And coming off at that intersection. So when you take the next one, you bring it over. Look at my orientation. I have the fat part of this dark one up. I want to make sure I've got right sides up and then right sides together. When I put this over, I want to make sure that this point and this point are aligned. Just a reminder now, you guys, this is the intersection that we're aiming for, and that's because the points are aligned, and when you come off that intersection, that will make a beautiful, perfect seam. Finger press the seam open. And now we're ready for these ends. And there will be another alignment for these as well. So position it as it needs to be. When you flip this over, once again, we've got kind of a bunny ear or a little tail down at the bottom. I'm going to make sure that the point of this is aligned with that and just bring it up to the top. It may feel that it's going a little bit high up there, but if you've cut everything perfectly the way it needs to be, everything will work in the end. So I'm coming into that at a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to now drive down on the 1/4 inch, making sure that I've already aligned this beautifully right here so that when I come off at that intersection. And again, we're going to continue to do that. So you're going to need all of your pieces to match just right. Make sure that you've got this oriented just like this. Again, I am matching the triangle points at the bottom, holding it in place, coming up the side, and then coming in at a 1/4 inch. We are down to the last piece, and that's going to be these. So once again, I'm going to take this, turn it to where it fits. I've got now the little point at the top right there. I want to make sure that this is aligned on top of that, that there is also a 1/4 inch right at the intersection. Don't stretch these bias, just let them sew. You've cut them accurately, so trust the process. And we'll continue adding these last 4 elongated triangles in position. I ran out of bobbin on that last one, so it's time for me to change my bobbin. Isn't that a joy? I played bobbin chicken and lost, but I'm going to go ahead, finish putting this on and finger press them, and then I'll talk about those units. Once you have all your units finger pressed and ready to go, there's all 4 of these guys. Let's give them a real press and then measure and trim off the extras. So as we look at this block, you can see that I need to trim off these little ears. I also need this to be 3.5 inches. So when I put this on, I'm looking at my 3.5 inch mark right here, and I can see that the bottom of this block looks good, the side of this block looks good, and I am maybe 1/8 of an inch short from my 6.5, but I want to talk about that after I trim off this top part. I really want that to be exactly 3.5. So yes, in this case, it ended up cutting a little bit off, but I'm okay because I still have my 1/4 inch, which is what I need right there. I'm going to trim off these side ears and flip this around to do the final trim. Again, I just need to put the 3.5 inch mark. I'm going to make sure I'm parallel here, 3.5 inches there, and that will then trim off this. Now, as I said, it looks like I might be 1/8 of an inch short on this end. But here's the thing about quilting in fabric. When I stitch, I can easily look just by a little, ever so slight tug, I can get to the 1/2 inch mark right here. And so I know the forgiveness of fabric, I will be able to piece this in and it will not have distortion and everything will fit. So if you are within 1/8 of an inch, I think that you will be just fine on your blocks. So I am very happy, very pleased with how these blocks have all turned out. And now it's time to work on those corner bits. You guys, I hope that you're enjoying this. I am taking time to show you the whole process, but you can see where I'm speeding it up because I want to make it efficient and time manageable. I want to thank Melanie for this wonderful compliment. She said, I'm singing the praises to the crew at the warehouse. I ordered Wednesday, got it on Saturday in plenty of time, cut out my fabrics, which is luscious. I have to tell you, I'm using this fabric from the kit as well, and it does. It feels beautiful. I love that fabric, so I'm really excited about that. So, and I do also, I see Timmy the Chin is saying that I love the forgiveness of fabric. Used it more than once. We're going to get really close, you guys, and I think that one of the problems with a lot of the quilters that they think it has to be perfect. You're going to hear me talk about that in one of these next videos. But there is a little bit of forgiveness, and it can still be not only beautiful, but as perfect as it needs to be for a project. So let's just continue on through this. I think you're doing well. I'm seeing the comments as they pop in. It's also great. I know I shouted out to Switzerland and Moscow, but I'm shouting out to all of you guys, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, New Mexico, everybody. It's great to have you here today. And off we go now to the next video. All right, we're down to those final 4 squares. You've got 4 pieces of each of the units. We are going to start with putting the triangles onto the square. So I want you to pay close attention to the layout here. All right, it's important that you get the correct triangle on the correct side. But I'm going to sew this one first, and I will do 4 of them chain pieced. I'm going to fold this up, and I want you to know that it is this right here where the seam is going to be, but we don't sew sideways. But I also prefer when I'm doing this to start at the right angle. Rather than flipping it over and starting on the point side, I would like to start that at the right angle. I've got my little starter in there, and I'm going to sew this all the way down and off. Now in this case, I am not paying attention to the 1/4 inch at the bottom of that. I want to make sure, again, I'm paying attention to the orientation of all of this. I'm going to flip this up I'm going to sew on that seam. Make sure that the right angle is perfectly aligned at the top of this. I'm going to trust that I have cut my measurements accurately on all of this. And again, double checking my angle, making sure it's this one. And once you look at it, you can see what's in here already, and they should match. If anything's not matching, something has gone astray or awry. All right, so here's my last. Make sure this is up. This is my orientation. Pull this up and give it a little turn and stitch. And as you already can expect, when I pull this out, I'm going to trim off each so that they're separated, and I'm going to finger press these open. Now it's time to put on these triangles. So we'll get them all oriented the way we want to do, and this time it'll be similar but a little different. This time I still want the right angle to start. So if I pull this over this way, I have to flip everything over. So why not, when I've got it this way, just fold the book closed and get that triangle right aligned at the 90 degree, right up here, 90 degrees, you can see that. And then whenever I sew this, coming in at the 90 degree, now look, now it's going to be a perfect 1/4 inch right where the intersection comes off. So that's our goal, is to make sure the seam is open whenever you come into this. Make sure that this seam doesn't tuck back and you go right off that point. Once again, align everything as you know it needs to be. All right, get it just situated. Close the book. In other words, put that square on top of the triangle. The right angles are together. And you can see this is a perfect 1/4 inch now at the bottom where we're going to sew off. All right, so I've got all of these. Can you see now that I've got some tails that need to be trimmed off? So I am going to go ahead and come in here, trim off that and trim off that for each one of these half square triangles that are pieced with a square and 2 triangles. Just tidy everything up. I think it helps. Now we are down to doing 2 triangles on top of each other. So that's these guys and these guys. They're going to go on top of each other. If you've done a good job with piecing, they actually should be so close to the same that you'll be able to match this point with this point and this point with the bottom point here. So that's what our goal is. I'm going to put the pieced triangle on top. This one is on top because right here I can see where that point is. And you can see it's a 1/4 inch, but I also know I'm not going to chop that off because I'm not blind. If I sew it on this side, it's going to be blind. So I'm going to put the pieced triangle on top. I'm going to match those points the best that I can. Go in at a 1/4 inch. Make sure it's aligned at the bottom. Make sure those points are right on top of each other. And make sure that your seam, your edges are perfectly aligned. Don't have one of them tucked back under. Using your 1/4 inch, come right off. And we're going to do that 4 times. We're still chain piecing here. I'll go to fast speed and let you see it all happen. And once again, finger press these seams open, and then we'll take them to the iron and give them a final finish on a press. Now, I know you've already guessed these are going to have to be 3.5 inches, and we need to get rid of those bunny ears or those little points. So I'm going to make sure that I've got 3.5 inches. Look at that, just so perfect. I'm so excited. 3.5 inches on both sides. So all I need to do is cut off those little bunny ears. I can, once I've already double checked, I can actually come in and do that like that. There's a school of thought that you should sew it right, and if it's not right, you have to leave it wrong. You have to leave it wrong. No, you don't. You can always fix it, and that's what I choose to do. I didn't double check the measurements on these last ones, but I'm going to be confident since the first two were absolutely perfect. Look at this, 3.5 inches on all sides. So that's going to be great. My points look good because I sewed them so that I could see them, press them open, and now we have all of our units ready to go to sew the block together. There we go. So I hope that you're following along. We're now down to the final wire on this. Let me just remind you, if you're just finding this video, it is recorded. This is part 2 of 4 for making the Odette quilt at thequiltshow.com, which you can find right there. So I'm going to continue now finishing this block, and then I want many of you, some have said, I'm doing this with AccuQuilt. Thank you for showing me the details. Kaye's version, I'm going to show that to you in just a moment, is similar to what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, I think our minds worked really well together, but there are some things that will be different in the way you align things if you've cut it with the specialty rulers or with AccuQuilt. So stay tuned for that right after this. I'm now going to put the block together for you. And so now I've laid everything out. The corners are squares, so that'll be helpful. You're going to sew these 3 together. You're going to sew these 3 together. You're going to sew these 3 together. I press the seams open still, and then I'm going to join the rows together. There is really nothing exceptional about this. We simply put everything together, aligning those right angles, and sew using a 1/4 inch seam. I almost got that twisted, so pay attention and you'll be just fine. Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that I did not pin, I just trusted the system, but also I want you to look that this is not absolutely perfectly matched right here. I am not concerned because I know that most of them will end up matching, and I know the visual in the overall quilt. If you need to concern yourself about this being, a 1/16 of an inch off right here, then you can. But it's not the way I go about it because I know this quilt block is going to look spectacular in the quilt. It's simply not necessary because of these angles, the way they work. It just magically looks fine. So I'm glad about that. I'm down to the last row, and then I will be able to sew the final 3 rows together to finish the block. Okay, you guys are going to ask about this stiletto. I got this in Kenya, so I don't know. I think it's from a bone. I don't know, and there's something it makes it look like zebra, but it's not zebra, so don't think that. But I also did put it in a pencil sharpener so I could get it a little bit sharper, but it's not so sharp that it's going to poke me. But nonetheless, I know you love your stilettos, and I figured you would want to know about this one. So it's kind of cool. I like it. It's a great memento. Now it's time to match some seams. If you feel like you need to put a pin at this seam right here, then you can. I'm going to finger pin it, so to speak. I'm going to make sure everything is aligned up at the top, just where I want it to be. And go ahead and trust my 1/4 inch seams And when I get my third hand, I call my needle down my third hand. When I get my third hand situated, now I'm going to just hold this, give it a little tug if I need to ease it in. And again, if this is ever so slightly off, I'm just not the guy that's going to be bent out about that. You do you, let me do me, okay? I'm more about having fun. I'm also really more about passion over perfection. And I am very passionate right now, so perfection is not coming into my world. It's going to be perfect enough. We're down to one seam, you guys. I'm sure the suspense is building. Before I finish this final seam, I just want to show you this little angle right here, all right, that white to the dark blue, and then it's coming into the medium blue, but that little point right there, that is the point of that white triangle. So because of the way I've pressed it open, I can see as I'm sewing, I can see that I am coming right to that point at the perfect 1/4 inch. So I know I haven't chopped off a point, it's where it needs to be, and we are doing traditional patchwork. So while I make a lot of big words about perfection, the truth of the matter is I want it to be as good as it can be, all right? But I'm also letting my own light be my guide. I am not letting somebody else's rules dictate what I am doing. All right, so now we were down to the final finger press and the final press, and this block is done. I do want to show you, once it's pressed, where the accuracy is that I've done with no pins. Again, if you need to pin, you do you. You do what you need to do to make your block work for you. My life word is time. Time. So if I don't have to spend time pinning, then I don't. All right, final press and we're done. Once I can see that all of the seams are nicely opened from the wrong side, I will flip it to the front side and give it a final press. I will tell you that sometimes I use a little bit of a spray with the product that gives it a little bit more substance. I don't have to do that. It's just, and I just happen to have it handy, so I am. But it makes the block look really nice. I also just want you to see my seams. They look really good. Let's take a look. All right, I'm happy with this block. I'm happy with this block, and we're just going to keep making 5 blocks. Yay, right? I have so much to tell you guys. First of all, Patrice said after that video started, can you tell us about your stiletto and the artist that made it? And I had already recorded that, so that was perfect timing. Sorry that I can't tell you how to get one from Kenya, but I do think it was one of those hair things where women have like a leather something to hold the hair, and then they put a pin through it. I think that's what it was. Keep your eyes open when you're in gift shops because you can find fun things like that. And yes, I was laughing whenever that question popped up. Also, even though I said the words, I think I have to keep this in mind forever. John Francisco is a guy that kind of founded Levita, Colorado, where I was for such a long time. Levita is a charming place, but there was a fort there, and he was chosen to go and find a place to put a fort. And in his diary, when he got there, he wrote, "This is paradise enough for me." And I just said, it's perfect enough. And I'm going to use perfect enough now forever. It's perfect enough, because I'll tell you, there are wonderful things in life that we need to move on and not stress about. So, all right, so now I want to get into what Kaye has done. So these videos, there's 3 of them. They are much shorter, but they will be really important for those of you that are using the specialty rulers and or using AccuQuilt. So let's get into that. I'm going to keep my eyes for questions, and we'll have a little chit chat after these. Okay, so here we are with Kaye England.
Now, this is the unit that I need to make that started its life out as a half square triangle, and then I trimmed it, and I'm going to re-add a triangle in lieu of making a connector. If you are using AccuQuilt, this would be a pre-cut element, and this would be a pre-cut element. All the flat tops would be there, and to sew it now, the only thing I do is I just simply lay this down, and this is where I love my stiletto. That helps me kind of maneuver to the machine. I'm going to take a bite. Then I'm going to, again, use this. And now we need to make 4 of these. So when I come in here, I've already taken my square, put 2 on, and now I'm ready to put 1 on this unit. So all I'm going to do now is simply put that on to that side, and of course it's still going to need another one. Again, notice that this is where my stiletto and my freehand system really come in handy. Then I'll just simply get this guy right here, and all I've got to do is sew down that line. See where I come off on that point? That is so important. If you start and you see that you're not going to come off on that point, you might as well stop and fix it, because you're going to have to deal with it at some point.
Sorry. I couldn't find the button to click back over. So you've got that one. I also just want to go into the next videos. I'm trying to write down the questions for you, and I will answer those questions once we're done with Kaye's segment. So here we go for the next one.
Now, this spiky unit is the next unit that we're going to build, and it's probably the most complicated to sew because it's made up of 5 units, 3 bias triangles, and 2 half rectangles, a left and a right. I have found it is easier if I sew these 3 units first. So in the case I've chosen my color, my center bias triangle is dark. My 2 on the side is light. I have found this to be the easiest method to sew this for me. When I pick this up, I've got a flat top and a point, and when I slide this unit right there, that's where I'm going to start sewing. Now, if you were cutting other methods, like with AccuQuilt, that point would already be removed. I'm going to go to my machine. And then if you look, and I'll show you with my stiletto now, I'm actually going to just come straight down there. And then I'm going to go ahead and come out of the machine just to show you this. I like to just open that with my nail. Now, I know a lot of people go, oh, I have to go to the iron. This is bias. I'd avoid the iron cost here. And I found if I just do that and then just walk across it gently in the air, I've got that about as tight as I need it to be. Now I need to put this guy on. I normally like the large unit on top, and I can do that because see how those 2 points line up right there? But I also like coming off on that one and starting back this way. I think it's a choice. It's whichever way seems to be the most comfortable for you. So I would just go right there, take a bite. Now here, because my points are on, can you see how that point and that point are spot on? And now that's kind of a guide for me. Now, as I approach this, be very careful that when you come off smack in that valley. Here's then is the same unit. I would just do this. Now, I have pre-sewn a unit, and already had it pressed. So you can see that there's my 3 elements that I need. Now what I need is my left and my right half rectangle. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, which one you pick up first, but when you do, notice that that notch, when you cut either with the rulers and or AccuQuilt, this is off. That's my starting point right there. So I'm going to come in. Now here again, the reason I sort of kind of don't like to pre-trim all those points, you see how that point's kissing that point? So when I come off here, I'm right in that valley. I would have this, and then I would just need to put the other side on, same way, and I end up with that finished unit.
All right, very, very good. I think you guys have fully seen everything that needs to be done and Kaye has shared with you. I have jotted down some notes here. Arda has said, could you cut your squares a little bit bigger instead of 3 7/8? Could you cut 4 and then trim them down? I support that theory. I have pretty much been able to manage with 3 7/8, and I do a pretty good job. But I want to give you all a tip, and it has to do with Post-it notes. There's a sticky side on this, right near the edge. If you will just, with scrap fabric, if you will find your perfect 1/4 inch seam, put this down in front of the needle so that the fabric ends up running right, let me just see if I can do this, so that the fabric ends up running right along the edge of this Post-it with like 2 or 3 layers. That will actually butt up against your fabric and you will guide your fabric right through to that needle, and you won't have to worry about cutting things a little bit larger. But you can. It just means you've got more trimming to do. And fortunately, I didn't have to do very much trimming at all. They ended up honestly as perfect a 3, as perfect as they need to be, right? Perfect enough for me. So that's something I would recommend you certainly could do. And also the stitch length that I use is a 2.0. I don't find my stitches popping out, but what I will say, don't know that I can do this, when I finally do the edge of a block right here, this seam goes from edge all the way to edge. Those are where I backstitch so that when I am putting on the next things, I don't have anything coming out. All of the other seams are crisscrossing in the middle, so they stay. But these edges, when I know it's an edge, I will do a little back stitch just to make it be a little bit more secure. So that's a tip that you might like. Betty said that about my perfect enough. Wabi sabi. Wabi sabi is an Asian term that kind of means the temporal, the beauty and the imperfection. And I love that. It's a term that I do with my photography class a lot. Someone else is also, I think the Quilt Show said, to check out a stiletto by looking on Etsy for African sticks or something, decorative sticks, or just even put stiletto. You might find something really fun. Also, we know that Linda said porcupine, African porcupines, but you can find porcupine quills, and I have some of those in my sewing room collection as well. And then also, Iris, I'm going to say regarding the cutting, you might have missed it. Lesson number 1 was so long. It really was. But go back and rewatch. And also, we have this document that is on thequiltshow.com. You can see the measurements that you need to cut. But 3 7/8 to make a triangle for that outside unit is the number that you'll need to do. I bought an AccuQuilt from Goodwill for $20, not knowing how expensive the dies are, so it sits. Well, you know what? The good thing is they are good dies and they last for a long time. So, so we all have our different ways of doing things, and I think our tools that we have are very well worth using them. So find the ones that you want. All right, you guys, I think that's all we need for today. I'm not going to see you for a whole week now. And so you can cut your fabrics, keep cutting. I made all 5 of my blocks in about 2 to 2.5 hours. So they don't take long. My final 3 blocks, because I made 1 to show you last week, I made 1 for this video. My final 3 blocks, I chain pieced all of the units each. So I was doing, I don't know the math, but I did all of them in chain piecing. So it went really, really fast. So you'll get your blocks together, and our lesson number 3 is going to be about setting the quilt together using the sashing strips and the cornerstones and getting these triangles cut out and building our borders. And then lesson 4, which is another week later, the next 3 Mondays, Monday, Monday, Monday. That last Monday, I'm going to show you how to quilt this quilt, both in a hoop, but also using my method of marking a quilt using water-soluble thread and Ricky Tim Stable Stuff poly. If you don't know about that, it is going to change everything for you. If you're not a long armer, you're a free motioner, you could do this on a long arm, so don't get me wrong. But what I'm going to show you, if you haven't learned that before, is going to really be exciting. So stick with me. If you've just found this project, this is number 2 of 4. They are at thequiltshow.com. Kits are available at the Quilt Show shop. You guys are awesome. I think you're fabulous. I enjoy visiting with you, and I hope that I taught you a little something along the way. All right, I'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.